The reviews are in, and we're going to tell you what they are. He's Todd Vandenberg. I'm Rob Steele, and we're going to start with death, because that's what every show should start with these days. Only we're starting with a trailer for Death on the Nile, because it's a good place to start. We all came from Africa anyway. Let's set off a few latent racists at the beginning of the show, because why not? Death on the Nile, the sequel to crap, it just escaped. Murder on the Orient Express. Like, there's a train, people died. What the hell is it called?
Runaway Train. Oh, different movie.
Yeah, something like that. I think the trailer looks really good. It's that's another whodunit with another all-star cast, really. Just to run through those real quick, because you're going to go, wow, all these people in one movie? Tom Bateman, Annette Bening, Russell Brand, Ali Fazal, Dawn French, Gal Gadot, Armie Hammer, Rose Leslie, Emma Mackey, Sophie I'm going to mispronounce your name, and I apologize. Okanoto, her. Jennifer Saunders, Letitia Wright, and Kenneth Branagh, this time with an actual, real, non-plastic mustache.
Nice.
Which, to me, that made the trailer, because that was the one thing I did not like about Murder on the Orient Express. Not that he had the big mustache, but that it was plastic, or at least looked plastic. But yeah, the trailer for this looks great. It has Depeche Mode as its background music, which is kind of weird, but you know what? It works, even though Depeche Mode wouldn't be around for another, 70 years Something after the story?
That. Totally works, though.
It totally works. So what did you think of the trailer?
I wasn't, blown away by it, but like you said, it's building on the very successful Murder on the Orient Express. All they have to do is set up the fact, it's a murder mystery, and look at the cast, and it absolutely does that really well. I really like the Depeche Mode music, because it doesn't fit at all, but it totally works. Basically, it's a signal that this is a little different from what you're going to expect, because you wouldn't expect that with an Agatha Christie thing, and it totally works. I really like it.
Yeah, and it's not heavy synthesizer until the end of it. It's more a cappella with the lyrics, and that's what took me a minute to go, I know this. I know the lyrics. Hang on a minute. That's Depeche Mode. And I thought that worked. So, yay for them.
Totally worked.
See, death with good news.
How about that?
Let's follow that with, why not? Let's go with Olivia Wilde's story of the week. And I have to admit, it took me, I'm like, I know the name. And I looked at her picture, and I was not placing her because she had long hair. And the last time I remember seeing her, it was really short in Tron. Oh, yeah, her. Got it. Caught up. She's going to be doing a female-centered Marvel movie at Sony, which sounds a lot like it's going to be... it started off, could it be Spider-Gwen, which I think is a stupid concept anyway, or Spider-Woman, which is an excellent idea and fits her perfectly. A lot of people are leaning more toward the Spider-Woman part. But one thing I did notice is that it doesn't necessarily say she's starring in it. She's directing.
Right, she's directing. Which is awesome. It would be fine if she starred in it, because she's an excellent actress.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people know her as an actress and don't know her, of course, as a director, which is okay, but that's going to be changing as this goes along. She directed Booksmart, which is an awesome coming-of-age movie. It's kind of like Pineapple Express, where Superbad, the two guys that are going out and they're just hanging out and they're having weird, wacky adventures and stuff, but it's two girls. And it's more of a comedy drama. It is such a good movie. And that's really her only other film that she's directed. She's done some shorts other than that. So Booksmart was her debut as far as, a major film. And it has a lot of heart to it. It's extremely well paced. definitely has comedy chops, which totally fits with a Spider universe character. She's perfect for this. She's perfect for this. So I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, and I hope it's Spider-Woman, like you said, and we'll see which one they do. And I like the character Spider-Gwen, but Spider-Woman has been around since, was it the late 60s or early 70s? She's been around a long time. A long time. And definitely deserves.
Even had her own cartoon for a while.
Yeah.
That a lot of people have forgotten about.
Exactly. And she's a very cool character who would always put Spidey in his place in a nice way. So hopefully it's not the Silver Sable movie that they've been talking about like for 10,000 years. I really want it to be Spider-Woman because that would be awesome.
I did read somewhere where apparently Sony may have said it is not the Silver Sable Black Cat movie.
Hopefully. Yeah, because supposedly that's back on, but that was a separate announcement. So
and off and on.
Right, exactly. It's Sony's version of the New Mutants.
Something like that. Actually, you know what? We said we're looking forward to that. This next one I'm not so much looking forward to, even if it does have Will Smith and Kevin Hart in it. Which sounds like it could make a good comedy, and I know that they're remaking a comedy, but I never cared for planes, trains, and automobiles in the first place.
You are a heathen. You are an absolute heathen.
I am. I'm not a fan of either Steve Martin or John Candy.
You're a double heathen.
I really am.
Well, this may be the version for you then.
No. I don't know that. Can we start remaking movies if we're going to from a long time ago?
Yeah,
I mean,
they tried it with Casablanca and it wasn't a good idea. So, that's a pretty long time ago. As Hollywood goes, as Hollywood goes, they're remaking movies that were remade 5 years ago. Yeah. I mean, literally, it's from another millennium, isn't it?
Yeah. So are we.
Quite true. Yeah, I'm not really thrilled with it. I like them both. I just don't. And they could make an excellent movie of that property. But I just don't see it as being an improvement. So I would rather they had just done something different. But we'll see.
Well, actually, speaking of something different, and I apologize for coughing so much. It's an allergy thing.
It's the Rona!
No, it's not. Although this story did make me a little bit sick. There's a website that's very popular called Consequence of Sound. And they do a lot of music stuff. And they released this week their list of the top 50 rock and roll movies of all time. And I looked through this list.
Are there 50?
And most of them aren't rock and roll movies.
Not surprising.
Now, look, Back to the Future was on this list. That's not a rock and roll movie. There's music in it. You may like the soundtrack. It is not a rock and roll movie. Pink Floyd's The Wall is a rock and roll. Tommy by The Who, Woodstock, the Beatles, A Hard Day's Night. Those are rock and roll movies. I might even give you Wayne's World. No. Might. I'm not giving you Forrest Gump. And
what the hell? Well, because there's a scene with rock music. I think it's a rock music.
Elvis only had one movie in this list. I'm not a fan of Elvis, but come on.
That's a terrible list. And I'd be willing to bet that there are not 50 movies that are rock and roll movies, even though there were a lot of them in the late 50s and 60s. Wow. That's not good.
No. I'm disappointed.
Back to the Future. Oh, look, there's a scene where a guy performs. It lasts about 7 minutes. It's a rock and roll movie. He's like, no, not really.
Okay, fine. If you want to play that.
La Bamba?
What was it? That was on the list.
The Buddy Holly story? That's a rock and roll movie.
I think that was on the list too. So
Jesus Christ, I would hope so.
Jesus Christ Superstar, I think, was on the list. But No, guy who played Ant-Man. Help me out.
Paul Drake. No.
Yeah, Paul Drake. That'll do.
Rudd.
Thank you. He did a movie, and I don't remember. I think it was "I Love You, Man," that had Rush in it. Damn it! There's your rock and roll movie. Why was this not on the list? They had an actual rock and roll band in it. No, they're not
That's
going to make the list. We're going to put Back to the Future. No, you're anyway.
and Consequence of Sound has some really cool articles, and they have
They
cool
do.
all kinds of
This was
cool
not
stuff.
one of them.
Yeah, that's a fail.
Absolutely.
Sorry, peeps.
But I think it's a good segue into your first movie.
It is a good segue into my first movie. I wonder if this movie was on that list. I'll have to check, or perhaps you know.
Off the top of my head, I don't.
Probably not. Depends when they made the list. This movie is definitely a rock and roll movie. It is a documentary. Linda Ronstadt, The Sound of My Voice.
Not to be confused with Crystal Gale, like I've done all my life. Don't ask why. I haven't figured that out yet.
I still haven't figured that out because she has much longer hair. So Linda Ronstadt, for those who may be unaware of her somehow, was the biggest rock star for a period of time. Late 70s, early 80s. And it's an enormous success, as in 5 platinum albums in a row. That's
impressive.
That's pretty good. She was outselling everybody. And some people will say, oh, she's not rock. She's not hard rock, but definitely rock. She then moved on to do some music that she preferred to do, just because she felt that she'd already done this kind of music. She'd done it for a while. She loved doing it. She didn't really like performing in big arenas that much because she was packing stadiums and stuff. And she just felt that you lost that intimacy. You couldn't really connect with the audience. And she didn't really like touring that much. So then she decided that she would make music she wanted to make. And when she first did this, I thought, what is she doing? That's insane. She recorded an album of American standards, like stuff that Frank Sinatra would sing. And the record label said, why are you doing this? This is crazy. You can't do this. And who would you possibly get that? Well, one of her favorite songs, Nelson Riddle had done an arrangement, who was a composer, arranger, orchestra leader for decades. He had done an arrangement for an album that Frank Sinatra did that she really, really liked. And she said she was talking to her record producer, not the studio executive, which was Warner Records at the time. And he said, who's out there like Nelson Riddle? And he says, well, why don't you get Nelson Riddle? And she thought he had passed away because he'd been around for so long. She just didn't know. So she contacted him and they got together and he did the arrangements. And it's one of at the time, it was the best-selling American standards album of all time. Like beat Frank Sinatra, like beat all those people that you think of that make that kind of music, the 40s, 50s music. So then, and the record labels, they did put it out. And when he heard that she got Nelson Riddle, he said, well, okay, I guess so. And then, of course, he was very happy to be wrong, which he admits in the documentary. And then later she felt, because she's actually, even though her name is Ronstadt, she's actually Mexican-American. That's her heritage. And she thought, you know what? My dad sang the mariachi music. That was really great. I want to cut an album of that. Again, it's like, what the hell are you doing? You've done 5 platinum albums, and then you decided, I'll make some American standards, which sold like crazy. And then she wants to do a mariachi album. It's like, but at this point, they said, okay, because they figured she's going to do it anyway. They're not going to talk her out of it. So
it'll probably sell.
Yeah. So she records the album and she went on tour with a mariachi band. And of course it sold like crazy. And because she's got this amazing voice, one of the best voices ever, absolutely incredible voice. 2 awesome things about this documentary: has a lot of concert footage of her from back before she was in the Stone Ponies, which was her first group, before she went solo, which was at the insistence of, surprise, a record company. And there's lots of, because as there should be, a lot of interviews with her at different points of her life. Some of them are from back in that time period. And she admits that she had recorded a song with the Stone Ponies, and she really liked the sound of it. And this producer comes in and says, no, we're going to do this as a solo. And they bring in an orchestra, and there's violins, and she thought, no, this isn't right. This isn't right at all. And then when she heard the finished product and saw the sales, she realized, okay, I guess you guys know what you're doing. Despite that, and she didn't ever write any of her songs. So, and that was one of the knocks against her, is like, well, okay, she's a great singer, but she can't do this. Is like, yeah,
She doesn't have to.
She doesn't have to. But she did get a lot of credit from a lot of people, in other than that one incident of saying, no, this is how the song should, this is how it should go. This is how the flow should be, and all the rest of it. So she did a lot of kind of on the fly arranging, basically, is how it's put up. Lots of interviews with people like Dolly Parton, Bonnie Raitt, J.D. Southern, lots of major people at the time. And it's nothing but praise, not just for her singing ability, but for her as a person, which is really nice to hear, because, sometimes celebrities, and we hear about them, we think, oh, that must be really cool. And then you find out, oh, no, they're like closet Nazis or something. But she was genuinely a super, and is, I should say, super wonderful person. The sad part of this is that she no longer sings. She hasn't done that for about 10 years because Parkinson's.
Ouch.
So that has ruined the control of her voice. But there's a very sweet moment at the end of the film where she's singing with her nephew and her uncle, and they're just sitting on the couch in, I think, the nephew's house, just singing some traditional song, a traditional Mexican song, I should say. And her voice isn't great anymore, no, by no means. But it's so sweet, because that's what it is all about to her. And she says that it's all about singing. It's not about touring. It's not about making a lot of money, which I'm sure she was happy to have, but it's just the act of singing. So even though she can't perform anymore, it's really sweet that you see her singing, at the end of the film. And it's just such a great document of her career and her as a person. It's just absolutely fascinating. Really, really love this movie. It's sad that she doesn't sing, that she can't, sing anymore the way we used to hear her, obviously. But it's still really uplifting, because she's still happy, and she's come to terms with, well, this is how it is. And, she misses singing the way she used to, but she still sings with family, which is the most important thing to her. So highly recommend Linda Ronstadt, The Sound of My Voice. It's available on lots of different streaming services, and it may cost you $3 or $4 to rent it. If you like music, period, regardless of whether you like Linda Ronstadt or not, absolutely worth watching. Highly recommended.
I actually like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's really very well done.
Here's a segue. Ready? See, it sounds quite interesting, which, oddly enough, is the name of the first thing I wanted to get a review in on.
Okay.
Although it's not actually called Quite Interesting, although that's what it stands for. It's called QI, and I don't know that we've ever reviewed something like this before. It is a TV show. It comes from the BBC. You can find it on YouTube for now.
It's an awesome show.
It's a game show, kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
Start with, you have your host, which originally was Stephen Fry, has moved over to Sandy Toksvig, who is all equally funny, I think. I've always liked Sandy Toksvig, back from when she was on the British version of Whose Line Is It Anyway back in the 90s. But you get 4 usually British comedians, occasionally actors, and it's such a bizarre quiz show where even the audience participates at times. And you can learn a lot of really bizarre facts on this show.
Yes, you can.
But it's fun. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out because I've been watching that a lot lately.
Yeah, my daughter will message me about something that she just saw on QI every once in a while. It's like, okay, it is
And
a hilarious show. It's awesome.
and I love the way they're doing the seasons, and you can tell how many seasons there are by not by the season number, but by the season letter, which I think is it's an interesting way of doing it. Right now, I think they just finished season R.
Would you say it's quite interesting?
I'd say it's quite interesting. The season R, one of the episodes is called Radioactive, and all the questions are about radioactive stuff or rubbish. Everything is about trash.
Probably had a lot of politicians.
There you go. Previous season was Q. Previous season was P. You get the idea, and it works. Could we do this as an American show? No, we're not bright enough. Sorry, I'm just throwing
quite likely true.
Unfortunately, we'd have to go back to, let's say, the 40s or so to find comedians that were smart enough to be on that, and that's where my next movie is from. Ta-da!
Woo.
Actually, it's not even just one movie. It's a series of movies. And yes, I went back this week and watched a lot about Dick Tracy. Yes, based on the comic strip of the same name. And no, not the, was it the 89-90 version with Warren Beatty and Madonna?
Something like that. Yep.
Not those. No. I went back to 1945 with Morgan Conway as Dick Tracy. And the first one had Mike Mazrucki as Split Face. Yeah, he'd be the bad guy.
He would be. Also a big bad guy.
Yeah, it's a 1940s murder mystery without all the gadgets that I've come to expect with a Dick Tracy thing. So didn't he have, and back me up on this, because I did not get a chance to look this bit up. Didn't he have like flying shoes or a flying car or something?
I don't remember if he had that. Of course, he had the two-way wristwatch radio. Yeah.
No,
he did have a lot of other gadgets, though.
Bond type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I looked at this, and those didn't come around until the 60s.
That's what I was thinking, that they weren't until, like, when we were reading Dick Tracy.
No. I did remember him having a girlfriend, and she's in the movie, played by Anne Jeffries. Yay. And he had a son, someone he called Junior. I couldn't tell if it was actually his son or if that was a nickname. It was a kid that lived with him.
Ew.
Okay.
Yeah. I think maybe it was a nephew or some kind of crap.
Well, actually, sure. And the kid, and this was weird. The kid ended up marrying Moon Maid.
That's right.
I'm not sure who that is, but that's where the gadgets came from.
She's from the moon. She had antenna.
My point. But yeah, I found where she came from. I couldn't find where he came from. Anyway, we're off the subject. The first one's not a long movie. It's just over an hour, but it's a series of them. And it's not bad for today even, really. Yes, all the cars look old because they are. And that's my one thing that I never understood about these is all of the cars look exactly the same. So every so often, run to the car, follow that car. Which one, Dick? They all look the same. And I can get away with saying that on this show because that's his name.
Probably was the same car over and over. Didn't have a big budget.
But I mean, there are no computers because it's the 1940s, but this could easily be updated for today. And the gadgets are not necessary. It's just a good old-fashioned murder mystery. Yeah, we find out who did it early. Yeah, it was Split Face. I already told you that. It's not a spoiler. But we find out why. And why he has the name he does, it's not hard to figure that out. But you can find that on YouTube. The free YouTube, I might point out, not the have to pay for it one. And there's 4 movies on there, including Dick Tracy versus Gruesome, where Gruesome is played by Boris Karloff.
Nice.
Yes, all these films are in black and white. Yes, you're going to be really annoyed by the character of Vitamin. I didn't name him. It's the 1940s, and yes, I'm going to recommend excuse me, I am going to recommend the entire series. And
Yay!
even though I just found a fifth one just before the show started, it's a compilation called Dick Tracy versus Crime Inc. But it's a compilation of the serials that they would run back in the movies long time ago. And this compilation is 3.5 hours long. So no, I didn't get to watch that one before the show started. Sorry, but you know what? It looks just the same as the other ones because I did skip through it a bit. So I'm going to recommend it. So take that, Todd. 5 movies and a TV show. And I heard you still have another one.
I do have another one. Tom Conway, by the way, was around. You didn't say Tom Conway, right?
Morgan Conway.
Morgan Conway, sorry. I wonder if they were brothers. Anyway, Tom Conway's a different dude, obviously, because he ain't got the name Tom. I did watch a different film, and it's another documentary. And in this case, it is not a happy film. It's a very good movie, but it's not a happy film. This is called Merchants of Doubt. This came out in 2016, so it's fairly recent. And what they talk about is still very important and still what's going on. So this is basically about the spin that corporations or political groups, whatever, will put on things to basically hide the truth and make people think that things aren't happening that really are. It basically centers on climate change, but it also deals with a couple other topics. It starts out talking about climate change, but then it goes back to the cigarette companies. Now, back in the 50s, the cigarette companies, and through the 60s and into the 70s, they were desperately fighting for their survival as corporate entities because they're people. They weren't then, but they are now. And because their product was killing people. And they knew it. And they wanted to deny it, so they hired a PR firm that made a film, but they hired a PR firm to help them lie in new and creative, fun ways. So they would have all different kinds of spin, and they would have all these people saying, it's like, well, it hasn't been conclusively proven. It was like, which wasn't even true. But that was their story.
And they're sticking to it.
And they are still sticking to it. Finally, it was just a few years ago that it was ruled in court that they had to make a commercial announcing that cigarettes can kill you. This is, I think it was in 53 when the first report came out. It was either 53 or 55 that cigarettes were harmful and could eventually kill you. And so they fought that for decades. The same firms is still around. These firms, they specialize basically in lying to the public. So again, this centers on climate change. One little, and if you don't believe in climate change, do some reading of actual documents, not the spin that assholes like this put out. A little aside, they jump into a campaign to save fire retardant chemicals in furniture. Now, this sounds really bizarre, but there were tests that came out that all these fire retardants that they put in the stuffing of your couch and stuff like that was dangerous, and kids would get exposed to it because kids screw around, they tear stuff up, and things get old. And even it just seeps through the cloth, and there's a lot of carcinogens in there. And the companies that make that, not the companies that make the furniture, the companies that make the chemicals that make foam fire retardant, we're going to lose a lot of money because that's a huge customer base. So they started this campaign. One of their, it was called Citizens for Fire Safety. This was this group, and it has the lovely picture of the kids holding up the sign, Fire Safety, that they drew themselves, except it looked photoshopped. And they made a mistake because there were 2 reporters from Chicago who were working on this story for 2 years, because even though the studies came out that the chemicals that they were putting in the stuff that we sit on every day could seep out of it and eventually give you cancer, no laws were passed against it. And they thought, okay, what's going on with this? So they checked into Citizens for Fire Safety, this organization in California. Problem is, if you don't have more than 50 members, you have to publicly disclose who the members are. And the members were the three biggest manufacturers of chemicals of fire retardants, and those were the only members. Again, corporate entities. No actual people, just three corporations that were selling the chemicals, which can kill you if they leak out of your furniture. So yay, fun. So finally they passed the law, said, oh, guess what? You don't have to do this. The lovely thing about this is they kept on citing this report that this chemist had done about showing how, these foam mattresses, they can go up just like that. This actually all started, oddly enough, or not oddly, by the cigarette companies, because most of the fires that started on furniture were caused by people smoking cigarettes and forgetting them, and the cigarette keeps on burning because they wouldn't go out. They would just keep on burning. So instead of...
Isn't that how Queen Elizabeth set fire to Windsor Castle?
Sure. Actually, I have no idea, but it sounds good. That's how a lot of people set fire to a lot of things. And so instead of actually making a cigarette that would go out by itself, because they said they couldn't do it, which is false, they invested in these companies to make more money to make your furniture fire retardant. Instead of actually fixing the problem, let's do something else which will keep it. And then they blamed the people for smoking for doing that, even though they're the ones selling the cigarettes. Well, the guy who did the study that showed that these foam mattresses would catch fire said, yeah, they will catch fire. The problem is they don't just self-ignite. The problem is people fall asleep and leave cigarettes. So just make cigarettes that don't do that. You don't have to have the fire retardant chemicals, which, by the way, do cause cancer. He wasn't saying that they were a good thing. He just said, look, this burns. This doesn't. That was it. So they misused his research, which is what all of these companies are constantly doing. They had the Kyoto conference back in was it the 90s or 2000s? 2007, I believe. So this is, again, we are on the path to solving the problem, taking little baby steps towards not being stupid and trying to kill ourselves. And this petition came up, and they talk about this petition from the Oregon Institute of Science and Medicine. Sounds really great. It's not really even much of a real thing. And they had 31,000 scientists sign this petition saying that climate change is a hoax, et cetera, et cetera. Problem is, there weren't 31,000 scientists that signed it, and there were a lot of people that actually didn't even sign it. There were 31,000 signatures, but not 31,000 people that signed it, because they had no way to verify those signatures, and they didn't care. They said you had to have an undergraduate degree in some science to sign it. They didn't check to see if you actually had that. They just did that. And they had a lot of fake signatures, like Michael J. Fox. Someone signed as Michael J. Fox. He didn't sign it. Professor Jerry Halliwell, as in that Spice Girl. She's not a doctor, so yeah, she didn't sign it.
She's one of the people who fights for climate change control.
Yeah.
Stuff.
So it's and this is a lot of this crap that the people who are fighting against climate change, who are fighting against stopping climate change, the two leading figures are physicists, which is cool. They're physicists. Are they climatologists? Nope. Okay, so you're a physicist. Why would you have any knowledge of what's going on with this? You wouldn't. Turns out both of them were on the payroll of either R.J. Reynolds or Philip Morris, the two biggest tobacco companies, from back in the 70s. Again, why would they be on the payroll? Because they can put PhD after their name, and they can say, oh, this doesn't cause cancer. In the 70s, one of them got a $240,000 paycheck for basically saying, oh, cigarette smoking won't kill you. It's like, he's a physicist. What the hell would he know about it? So basically, these guys just lie for profit, and they help the merchants of doubt. The title comes from the fact that there's a document from the PR firm that worked for the tobacco companies that said, our product is doubt. And that's what they're selling. That's all they're trying to sell. They're just trying to sell the fact that, well, if we can make you think about it, which, what political figure can I think of now that does exactly this? So...
is he orange with white stripes?
He could be. Yeah, so it's not a fun documentary to watch, but it's very eye-opening. And it deals with much more than climate change. It deals with toxic chemicals, pharmaceutical companies, the tobacco companies. And it's just their game is to make you doubt it and just to lie. And they don't care what the lie is because they'll just come up with a new lie. So not a fun experience at all. But I do highly recommend Merchants of Doubt, also available on a lot of streaming services. And it's free on IMDb TV, which is Amazon Prime's free streaming service. You just go to Amazon and you can find IMDb TV and you can watch it there. So
it sounds like we're back to death, which is where we started. See, we've come full circle again, only we started with happy death and ended with not
bad
as much.
Death. Not as happy death, indeed.
Death. Damn it, we mentioned the orange prick. That's the other show. Anyway.
Yeah, well.
You know what? We've given you, 7 movies and a TV show that has, 20 seasons of stuff to watch? We've given you plenty this week.
Yes.
And we you don't have to go anywhere to watch it.
We expect a full report by next week's show.
Yeah, that we do.
Watch them all.
So, you know what? Stay home and watch a TV show or a movie.
Captain, we're losing power in the warp engines.
I think we should be leaving now.
I'm going to go home and sleep with my wife.
And on that unusually harmonious bombshell, it is time to end.
I am very disappointed!
Man, we have a weird job.
It's shameful, but it's a living.
And like that, he's gone.
McConkey.